Peace and blessings, everyone. Y'all just bear with me for a second as I try to navigate these multiple streams here. Where is my channel? Hopefully y'all can hear the music. I don't know if you can or not. So boom. So peace and blessings, everyone. This is your brother asarimhotep, and it is nothing special going on here. Shout out to everyone who is in the chat room right now. Peace to Jarrell Amade, to Harold Richardson, to Monica Lamb, to Brother Chavez, to Ivan, to Brian Hess, and on YouTube, Sister Maika. What I'm doing here is testing the simulcast feature of this StreamYard software. So beforehand, I was using the free version, and now I'm using, I guess the upgraded one. So that's why you don't see the StreamYard logo on the right-hand side of the screen, which I'm pretty sure I will replace with my own logo on a few occasions. But I just wanted to test to see how it would be in terms of the streaming on both platforms. So I have on this computer, of course, the main backdrop in terms of the dashboard and navigation for the broadcast. Then I have on this computer the Facebook, and then I have on my phone here the YouTube. So I see that I am streaming. Seems beautiful on both platforms, even though I don't have the volumes up on both of them because I know that there will be some interference. But instead of me just randomly testing, I decided to, make a formal announcement and kind of just inform you all of the latest book that has been released. So kill two birds with one stone. Excuse me. So for those of you who have been keeping up with me this time, y'all know that I was working on, I still have this feature. I got to figure out how to take that off because it's messing up. Okay, so StreamYard has this feature where you can use a green screen and let me go back to 9. There we go. Okay, there we go. So I may experiment with that in the future. So as I was saying, the StreamYard software has a feature where if I have a green screen or a blue screen in the back, I can put my own background in the software. And so I will be, kind of juxtaposed to this background. So when I was holding up the book, I forgot I was experimenting with it the other day on the blue screen. I don't have any of my screens. So for those who know, I am also a photographer. And, while I'm in Texas for a few months, I got my camera and stuff here, but my backdrops and everything are still in Philly. So I can't test the green screen feature. And where I'm at, we don't have any green screens or blue sheets or anything to that nature. But anyway, but every time you put something blue up, it would, show whatever background that I had in there. So that's what it was just doing now. So hopefully this glare won't be too big. But just this weekend, I released Towards a Comparative Dictionary of Cikam in Modern African Languages. The primary languages being dealt with is Egyptian, Chibantu, Yoruba, Kalajan, Sumerian, and Meroitic. And so this book actually started off just as a personal project in terms of I needed to have a central location of all of the major language comparisons or vocabulary comparisons that I have been doing over the years between ancient Egyptian and modern African languages. And so what I did was I just made a single document, and instead of just me having a Word document with the comparisons, I decided to, make it a book, for those who are interested in this kind of thing. And so it's not a dictionary in the traditional sense, which is why it says Towards a Comparative Dictionary of Cikam in Modern African Languages. What I want to do is create an online database, an online comparative database between ancient Egyptian and modern African languages. And to do that adequately in a physical book would be taxing, to say none the least. So what I wanted to model it after, let me see if I could pull this up real quick. Proto-Indo-European lexicon. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and go to a Chrome tab. Let's go there. So we're going to share. So I'm not sure if y'all can see this. Let me go back and make sure that it's full screen. So boom. See, Dr. Pasalo, or Owana Pasalo, or Yauna Pasalo, I think that's how you pronounce it, in 2013 wrote his PhD dissertation titled System Proto-Indo-European, the Primary Phoneme Inventory and Sound Loss System for Proto-Indo-European, which you can, see on this website and download his PhD dissertation. So he got his PhD at the University of Helsinki, somewhere in Europe. And part of what he talks about in this PhD dissertation was creating an online and a digitized version of a generative comparative dictionary. And oh, that's right, you can't even see it because it's not on that tab. But anyway, let's see if we could do. Nope, it opens it in a new window. Well, trust me, just click. If you go to this website here, proto PIE lexicon dot hum dot Helsinki HELSINKI .fi, you will see this website, and then you can go into this corner here. Maybe if I increase the size, y'all can see it a little better. So if you look at this dictionary here, it is, you can kind of see how this is done. So would they have the proto reconstruction, at the top, and then the subsequent the words in the languages of Indo-European where this root can be found. So this is Hittite here, this is Greek, Gothic, Greek, or whatnot. But what's also interesting about this dictionary is that it gives you, like, if you click on this reconstruction on the left hand side, it gives you the steps of the sound laws which led to the form that you see in the language being compared. So from this proto root here comes these sound laws that were established using the comparative method, and then it informs you of how they got to this word in Hittite, Ganesh, or in this Greek version, nail. And so, as we can see, this word nes is nes, and then in Proto-Indo-European for this variant is neso. But it lets you know how the word nail came to be, for this term here. And so it's saying that the sound law is from S to H. So there was a change from the Proto-Indo-European S to H in Greek. And then from H to 0, that means they lost the H. So it says loss of segment H, and then you get neo, and then change from Latin to Greek alphabet. So neo. And given that this is German, I don't read German like that, so I have to use our trusty Translate, Google Translate, for German. And so this is a word for happy, to get back, to come back. That's what it's saying here. So neo, but it comes from nest, Proto-Indo-European nest. And so this is an incredible feat. And you really kind of got to be into linguistics to see how important this is. Well, I want to do something like that for African languages, and more specifically Theophilo Benga's Negro Egyptian, which I have renamed Chiena into. And so with that said, that is the motivation behind saying the text here. So the objective of having all of my comparisons in one single text, with very little commentary, is just to have a record of it. Because if you read, for example, my book Nesubiti, King in Ancient Egyptian, or you read the work by the Shimsu Heru research team, which is Brother Sanjeti and Brother Wujawu and I. If you read, for example, Where is the Love? How Language Can Reorient Us Back to Love's Purpose. Or if you read, Aluja, Volume 1. Or, I got to find it now, Aluja, Volume 2. And then some other articles that didn't make it into these texts. All the comparisons are scattered, and they are, how should I say, given in a different context. So I'm answering certain questions regarding to certain language topics. And so, but with this text, I am just, for the most part, so the first 2 chapters are just the comparisons. But as I noted from an earlier conversation, you can see how thick, the Aluja Volume 2 book is. It originally had 2 more chapters in here, but due to the limitations of the printer at this 8.5 by 11, the book was too big. So I took 2 chapters out, and I put two of the chapters, those two chapters that were going to be in the Luja Volume 1 in this text here in terms of the comparative dictionary. So, but then, so I was going to release this on the exact same time that I released this back in January, in Luja Volume 2 in January. However, I decided to include two more articles, in this. So I had to finish those up and get those reviewed by some reviewers, and then I added them into the text, and now it is ready. So this is, again, the latest rendition, and I guess I will share my screen to kind of give you a preview of exactly what it is that you can expect to see in the text. So just give me 1 second as I share my screen again. So boom. And so let's go back to the beginning. Go to the top. So I'm looking on my screen to make sure that everything is kosher. So boom, we are here. So this is, some of the insides of the content. So you can see, of course, the standard, intro pages, the copyright page, ISBN, and here are the chapters and segments of the text. So, we have the general preface, the linguistic framework. And so the linguistic framework is kind of the combination of some of the intro of Luja Volume 2 and Nesubiti intro. And I modified the Nesubiti intro to include the data, because remember, in between Nesubiti, which came out in 2016, and the Luja Volume 2, which came out this year in 2020, I renamed Negro Egyptian to Chiena Intu. And so it explains, the reason for the change and everything to that nature. So we're comparing, these two right here. We're combining these two. So this linguistic framework is that text. So, and then chapters 1 and chapters 2 are Egyptian comparisons, but chapter 1 is the internal comparisons. So I'm just comparing ancient Egyptian to ancient Egyptian, so that we can see the different dialectical variations in the text. And so that's what this is compared. And so we got the definition of semantexes and the stroke and possible sound values. These are just kind of sub chapters in here. And then we have the Egyptian comparison tables, external comparisons. And so we are now doing Egyptian with a whole slew of other languages. So the first set is Chiluba. Then from there is Cikam and Chibantu and the broader Chiena Intu, Cikam and Sango, Chiena Intu words for rope, Cikam and Chui, Cikam and Semitic correspondences, Cikam E and K correspondences, Cikam and Proto-Indo-European is just the word love here for this section. So it's not deep right here. And then a kind of a subchapter re-examining the Min glyph, which kind of falls into Bantu and Chiluba comparisons. Then you have a whole slew of Cikam and Sumerian, suggestions, comparisons, then Cikam and Yoruba, Cikam and the collagen language. So so these are the external comparisons in the text. And so now from there, because again, this is information that are in previous texts that have been published. So either in my books or some other articles. So the advantage of this is not having to reference every one of those particular texts. You could just go here and find the correspondence sets, because I'm not doing a lot of commentary in this section here. It's just me given the comparisons, and some of them have no commentary whatsoever. It's just table after table after table. So, but the chapters that I were going to include in the text in Alluja Volume 2 is this here, Moradic and Sumerian comparisons. So this is my preliminary analysis comparing the Moradic undeciphered language to the Sumerian. And I think you will find that very interesting. And then, of course, updating my article, Testing Mboli's China into Semantic Map. Semantic map with ancient Egyptian lexemes. So these two were originally supposed to be in Alluja Volume 2, but because of the printer's limitations on how many pages I could have at that size, they were like, no love for you, brother Asar. You're going to have to take some pages out. So I felt like I had some water or some liquid at the airport, and they weren't going to let me in the airport with, that water bottle, or there was too much in my luggage and they're trying to charge me extra heavy on the luggage at the airport. So that's how I felt. So anyway, just repurpose, and when the world gives you lemons, you make lemonade. And if you're black, you make a lemonade slushy or cool cup. That's how we do it back home in the South. So anyway, but I added 2 additional chapters, and this one is a Proto-Indo-European and China into lexical comparisons, an initial bilabial test. And then there is the etymology of the word God revisited. So there's 4 additional chapters here that have not been published that are found in this text. So if you of course you see the repeated stuff here, understand that you have 4 whole chapters that are not that are not published. And or if they were, like, in case of my academia.edu, they have been updated. And for example, this Testing Mboli's China into Semantic Map, I had that on academia.edu, but I deleted it and took it off because I updated it a little bit and I put it in this text. So these are the chapters, right here. And thank you to Ivan, for your generous donation. Appreciate it greatly. And let me see. I'm just making sure everything is still copacetic over there on Facebook. So everything seems to be chill over there. So this is the detail. So of course, here's the intro. So the inspiration, in terms of doing a comparative dictionary, again, I gave you one inspiration, which was the Proto-Indo-European dictionary, online dictionary, but also this text here by Yopareka Some, and it is the course or initiatory course for the language, the Pharaonic Egyptian language. And it is a what is it? It's really kind of a textbook for what am I saying? For learning the Egyptian language. But at the back of the book, like the last chapter, they have a small section where they're taking, works from like Om and Digi or Theophilo Benga and some of their lexical comparisons, and they put them in the back. And so it's in French, of course. And so I was like, we need something like that in English. And then, of course, there is Mubai Binge Bilolo's towards an African, towards a Cikam, Coptic, and Luba dictionary, Bantuity, or the Bantuity of the Egyptian and Coptic vocabulary in the essays of Holmberger, that's Lilius Holmberger, and Theophilo Benga, which came out in 2011. So he's working on a dictionary strictly with Egyptian, Coptic, and Chiluba. And so with that said, I was like, again, we need something, for English. And then, of course, there is the work of Jean-Claude Mboli with his Origins of African Languages, where he was reconstructing Negro Egyptian, which was started by or originated with Dr. Theophilo Benga. So with that said, I wanted to create an online database with these comparisons that were updated. So what I plan to do is to go back into and redo Mubai Binge Bilolo's Ver un dictionnaire Cikam text to redo his whole list of comparisons, because there are a few phonemes which I don't think that he matched up right, and which I have highlighted, here in this section. But he missed some cognates because of the misapplication of two of the phonemes. So I want to go back and redo that analysis. So I want to include his personal vocabulary. Then I want to include Jean-Claude Mboli's comparisons, and we reanalyze them one for one. And then, of course, my own comparisons with these other languages like Yoruba, Sumerian, Chiluba, of course. What else did we use? Tree, and whatever other, languages, and collagen, to be able to go back and include those languages. So as you can see, because I think Jean-Claude Mboli himself compared like 14 languages. And to do a good, comparison with those 14 languages, then to include like the 6 or 7 that I deal with, plus the other ones that others have dealt with, it is just too much for a physical text. And it won't allow us to update, do real-time updates with new information. So the online dictionary is the ultimate goal. And so let me, continue, saying forward. So again, as I stated, the linguistic framework, if you have Aluja Volume 2 and Nesubiti, you'll see that these are just modifications, of that text in terms of the introductions, but it's giving you an outline and a framework of what makes Negro Egyptian and why I changed it to Chiena Intu or Chikanda Chikulu for the overall framework. But so that's the introduction, and from there, we go to chapter 1. So Egyptian comparative tables, internal comparisons. So as I stated before, it's just my tables for Egyptian upon Egyptian. So you see that the J sound corresponds to K in the first consonant position, and then the B sound, B as in boy, corresponds to the M sound, M as in Mary, in Egyptian. So we can say that these are dialectical variants. And so it helps to kind of put it all in one space. So if I did make a mistake, it's easier to catch this way instead of having to trace it down through multiple texts as they are currently in. So, we can kind of skip this. So as you can see, I'm not doing much commentary. It's just comparison after comparison. So all of these are Egyptian upon Egyptian comparisons. But then let me continue. And so what we're trying to do is to establish the sound laws, the internal and external sound laws for all of these terms. And so I'm going to keep going. Here's a list of the semantexes that you find in Emboli's 2010 work. And so for those of you who have Emboli's work and want to know exactly the Negro Egyptian semantexes, I took the time out to trace all of the semantexes and what they mean, in terms of his initial correspondences, and I list them here, as well as what page number you can find them on in his text. So this will help you along in your reconstructions. And then of course I put my own semantexes, in here that add to, the conversation. And so with the conversation dealing with the strokes, so chapter 2, the external comparisons. So now you see, for example, Chiluba. So now you see me comparing Egyptian with Chiluba. And then for this section, it'll be all Chiluba comparisons. But then, I expand beyond Chiluba into other, languages, and they'll be kind of mixed here, because sometimes a table of mine will compare like 2 other or 3 other languages. So, but for the most part, in this section, you'll find Chiluba and Egyptian. But then like here is Kikongo, here's Bassa with Egyptian. And so it's just one good depository. And so I'm gonna skip further down, Cikam and Tree. Now this is with Semitic. And so again, the objective is to have the sound correspondences. So like how you see with this Proto-Indo-European here, I have the sound correspondences. So this was missing outside of Emboli's work, a list of the sound correspondences, for the vast majority of the comparisons. And this helps a lot, because if I'm going to program this dictionary, like, I need to know this because I got to program the sound laws and program the sound correspondences. So this helps tremendously. And this is kind of a, sub-chapter dealing with the Amen. So it's a conversation on Amen, on the men glyph. And we'll skip that. And then, of course, my comparisons with Sumerian is very valuable here. So, it's good to have this in one location. Let me see. Hold on. I'm just skipping down. So kind of showing you, like, here's a section here, Egyptian and Sumerian classifiers. as I discussed in the Luja Volume 2, both the Egyptian language and the Sumerian language, the writing script uses classifiers. And what I argue is that the classifiers are the result of the languages themselves having classifiers in the language. And so I demonstrate and prove that the same classifiers that you find in Sumerian are the same classifiers that you find for the most part in Egyptian. And so this will open up a larger discussion in terms of the relatedness between ancient Egyptian and Sumerian. Here's my Yoruba comparisons. Egyptian and Yoruba. So where we have Neb in Egyptian, we have Be or Ba in Yoruba. This will help in your language comparison. So as you can see, it's not much commentary. It's just straight up comparisons in these sections here. So I'm just going to skip down a little bit. I'm trying to get to the and so this book is like 300 and something pages. So this is another relatively, it's not as big as Aluja Volume 2, but it's big nonetheless. But I should say that, even though it's 300 something pages, as you can see, it's not a dense 300 something pages. So it's only a few chapters where it's actually, you have to read line by line of text, because it's mainly just tables. So it's these long tables that are the bulk of the text. So keep that in mind. So it's not anything that you would have to spend half a year reading, because it's not that dense as far as that is concerned. But here's the Meroitic and Sumerian language comparisons. And so what I attempt to do here is compare, as it states, Sumerian and Meroitic. So Meroitic is a Sudanese language that has not fully been deciphered yet. So we know what the sound values are. And so I have the sound values here along with the Meroitic script. But there's not that many words for which have been deciphered in the language. So the language is not fully deciphered. So I'm hoping that my contribution here helps in the decipherment of Meroitic. And so, I think it's a total of, I'm comparing, let me scroll to the bottom here. So there are 60 words that there's actually a few more. It's probably around 70. But I tried to avoid, with the exception of maybe 2, obvious ancient Egyptian borrowings from in the Meroitic script. But for the most part, these are 60 comparisons of Meroitic with the Sumerian language. And so as you'll see, when I'm comparing the Meroitic and the Sumerian, I also have some Chiena Intu or Negro Egyptian languages with some possible cognates, for the words in this third column here. And then, of course, as usual, the last column is reserved for the sound correspondences. And what I've concluded as a result of this conversation is that the Sumerian and the Meroitic language are related, and that and as I demonstrate, the Sumerian and Egyptian are related, and Sumerian and Bantu are related. So what makes this comparison or this chapter different from any other comparison of Meroitic is that I stick to one language. So if you look at my sources in this text, of these words, which you can find on page 230. So here is a group of text for which I drew these these Maradic words from. They all do mass comparison, or they compare with the proto language. And so I wanted to avoid that and stick to one language so that we can establish sound correspondences. Because if we can establish the sound correspondences, then we can get closer to deciphering the script. So, by doing this type of work, hopefully we can decipher the Maradic script fully. So this is just the first step in that process. So we can see here that Maradic word abada corresponds to Sumerian peel, male. And then in Yoruba, bale, baal, father, husband, leader, chiluba, baya, husband. And so the sound correspondence for Sumerian and Maradic in this instance is P, Maradic B with Sumerian P, and Maradic R to Sumerian L. And so when we go here to ata, bread, it corresponds to ash, bread, a type of flour in Sumerian. So it's T with this palatalized sh sound in Sumerian. So we see the same correspondence, ato, water, with esh, water, in Sumerian. So we see that the Maradic sada or ser, asada, meat or animal, sila, sula, a cut of meat, salted pickled meat in Sumerian, SSRL. And so we do this for 60 correspondences, and we see a pattern here that allows for us to make these kinds of comparisons so we can go further and try to decipher the script. So so that's what this chapter is about. And so I tested to see if I can decipher an unknown word in Egyptian. So I mean in Maradic. So here just the commentary on the sound correspondences, and then this title here, I put it to the test to try to decipher a word. And so, you get to see all of that in the text. And then I do some more Sumerian and Cikam or Egyptian comparisons, because both Egyptian and Sumerian is going to be instrumental in deciphering the Maradic script. And of course, Bantu, because of the relationship between Sumerian and Egyptian with Bantu. So, this is what you'll see in the text, which, the sound correspondences will contribute to the, how should I say, contribute to the online database. So the online database is, in design, is in conceptualization mode right now. And I'm going to be checking with like the makers of the Proto-Indo-European, because I want to model it after that and this Tower of Babel database for Nostratic. I think how they did it is very good as well. So I want to combine those two functions of the database for our own Negro Egyptian database. So here's testing Mboli's China into semantic map with ancient Egyptian lexemes. So I put to the test Mboli's semantic map, and it will make sense when you get the book, what we're talking about here. And, I use this as a test case, the consonants HM or MH with the dot under it. You'll see what that means. But what's good about this chapter especially is I translate Mboli's entire semantic map that are on pages 506 to 512. So it's 12 pages of of data. So he's showing you here from the concept of a tree to the concept of top, mountain, big, fat, adult, old, king, and then big, fat, rich person, noble, big, fat, pregnancy, and pregnancy, mother, woman, birth, child, produce, multiply, etc., etc. And then, from top, mountain, all, bunch, number, and then these semantics. So this will help, especially in the database, in determining what is cognate, because a word for big and fat will be cognate more than likely with a word in a different language for rich person or noble, because they come from the same linguistic root, but they went in two different directions. And so this helps us in determining what is cognate and what is not cognate in the Negro Egyptian or Chiuna into language family. And so I translated all of this, and hopefully it'll make sense to you when you get it. But this is in the text, and then some further tests that I do on Ma'at, and then on, foot, leg up here. And so that's that. Then chapter 5 is Proto-Indo-European, Chiuna into lexical comparisons and initial bilabial tests. Is just as it sounds. I'm comparing Egyptian and Sumerian. This is just an initial test here, but you can see with this one is Proto-Indo-European, Middle Egyptian, and Proto-Bantu and Sumerian, showing that there's a pattern here that cannot be denied, and it cannot be the result of chance. So from this preliminary set of correspondences, we do a more thorough analysis, and we go into, Proto-Indo-European, Middle Egyptian, and Sumerian. So since Proto-Indo-European is a reconstruction and reconstructions can change, I included the Hittite language. So it's really a comparison between Hittite, Middle Egyptian, and Sumerian. And you'll see these correspondences here. So unlike the other books, this one is more linguistic focused. But so, here are the sound correspondences for the initial consonant test. I won't go into detail of that, but this is the last chapter, chapter 6, and we're dealing with the etymology of the word God. So I know people have been waiting on this. I did in Aluja Volume 1 an analysis of this in terms of the word God. You can, for the most part, scratch that text. And not that it doesn't have valuable information. It's just that, I'm doing a more concentrated comparison in this text on the etymology of the word God, and it brings about for more solid results. So I use some of the information from Aluja Volume 1, but as you will see, if you have Aluja Volume 1, and then if you have this text, that it's totally different here. And so so I give a little history of the comparisons, for the word God. And this is important, and the inspiration behind this conversation is because there's so many of us in the quote unquote conscious community that as soon as we got woke, so to speak, in quotations, that we started rebelling against the word God and arguing that the Africans did not have gods. And, in trying to distance ourselves from European and European concepts, we made the conscious effort to stop trying to utilize the word God when referencing the divine forces of nature and the divine, when we're talking about African phenomena. Well, given that I've already started experimenting in reading on the possible relationship between African languages and Indo-European, I set out to see if the word God in English could be traced to African languages. Could we find the cognate for it in African languages? So I've been looking at this I've been researching this for a number of years. And so now that those number of years, probably like 10 or so years, has now culminated into this chapter here, this last chapter. So you'll come to be surprised that, you know, not only is God an African word, the word that came into English as God is even cognate with the word Netcher in the ancient Egyptian language. And so when you're saying Netcher, you're just saying the Egyptian dialectical variant of the word God in English. And all of this is explained. And I use as my primary comparison to set the sound laws in order the Collagen language, which is a Nilotic language in East Africa and Northeast Africa, in terms of Sudan, in terms of Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, and Ethiopia, in the western part of Ethiopia. So it's a very large spread of the language, but they were nomadic pastoralists. And so you can imagine that, you know, these folks have broken off, and they were the military branch of the ancient Egyptians in ancient times. So they have since migrated since the days of the Greek and Roman period through ancient Egypt, through Sudan, into their modern areas. And so the collagen is, you know, sets the first precedence in terms of the comparisons. And then, you know, from there, I include the Chiluba language and Middle Egyptian. And so I I set the correspondences here for Netcher, God, with Chiluba. And then we start comparing Proto-Indo-European, Cikam, Chiluba, and collagen. And so this is a reconstruction for God in Indo-European, and you will see that it corresponds to Cikam, God, Chiluba, Inkole, Inkwele, or Inkola, Inkwela, and then collagen, Nettoor, and some other words as well in the same semantic range. And so, and you know, this is just further confirmation of what I'm talking about. And so, and then my deep analysis of this and how this came to be. And then, you know, the chapter ends, and then of course the selected bibliography. So this is in a nutshell the text. And I know I kind of went through this, you know, fast. This was not meant to be like a lecture. I'm just kind of giving you a preview of what's in the book. And, you know, we end the sharing from there. So as I stated before, this particular program today was just kind of a last minute thing to test. One, to do two things, to kill two birds with one stone, to introduce to you the Towards a Comparative Dictionary of Cikam in Modern African Languages, another book in terms of the 8.5 by 11 frame. This is an older copy, so it doesn't have the last two chapters in it, but the ones you would be getting if you ordered today would have the other two chapters in it. So it comes out to like 339, you know, physical pages, roughly. And so, you know, it's going to be a thick book, but as I stated before, it's mainly tables. So it's not dense reading. It's just language comparison tables that you will see. So, and so you wanted to, I'm looking at the chat. Let me see. Chris Withers asked if, you know, when is it available? It is available right now as we speak. And I will put the link in the chat to the book where you can order it from. And it is also in the description already. So it's the first link that you'll see in the description. But for those who are in the chat, I will put the link in the chat. Let me go to this page right now. Go to StreamYard. Send towards dictionary. Boom. I will place it there. Now, I know if I put anything in the chat here, it's not going to come to the chat there. But for those who are watching live on Facebook, let me see. It should be the same thing. Like the link for it is going to be the first link in the description that you will see, kind of above or below the video, however it shows up on your page. But again, I wanted to kind of promote the book, and then because I upgraded on my StreamYard service, that allows for me to broadcast on YouTube. When you upgrade, you have the ability, one, to get rid of the logo, that StreamYard logo that you saw in the top right hand corner, but also to simulcast to 2 different platforms. So so I wanted to test to see if how it would look and how it would be on the platform. But I don't know if it's my computer or if because I look fuzzy kind of on the what is this, the Facebook one. So I'll be experimenting. I'm going to have to get me a different what do you call it, because I'm using the built-in webcam and mic, and I want to do something different. I'm going to have to buy, because I have one, but it's in Philly. So all my stuff is in Philly, but I'm in Texas currently right now. And I believe, yes, Brother Ivan, you did pre-order, and it has been, your order has been sent to the printer, and it will be arriving soon. So all those people who pre-ordered, your stuff has already been ordered from the printer, and then within the week, it should be shipped out to you. So y'all don't have to worry about that. So, but I do remember your name and me making sure that it was shipped out. So, yes, so that's really all that I have. And so unless somebody wants to talk about something different, or have any questions about any random thing, I'll just end the program. It says, when you get back, it says party music DJ basically hit you up when you in Philly, when they get back to Philly, most def. So I won't be coming back until the summer. So we're looking at June, July. So it kind of, I mean, it doesn't suck because I'm here with my family or whatnot here in Texas, but I'm without my books, which are, in Philly. So this is why I haven't been banging on y'all on Facebook so hard, because I ain't got my weapons with me, But if I was at home with my weapons, I'll be talking more ish on Facebook and any other platform. But anyway, let me see. I don't see any questions anywhere, but so far the software seems to be working. But I would definitely have to I'm definitely have to kind of coordinate between the two. But yeah, I'm just not liking how the visual is coming along in terms of the camera quality on Facebook right now. It could just be my computer, but then again, whatever. says, want to ask you about linguistics. You can hit me up and, on my email, which is info@asarimhotep.com, which I put in the chat, or you can just go to my website, which is asarimhotep.com. He says it might be the lighting in the room. I don't think it's the lighting in the room per se. Because I did, as I mentioned before, I'm a photographer. So the light that you see in front of me is one of my soft lights that I brought with me to Texas. So it's pretty lit up, but it's like, and I don't know how to explain it. On my computer, everything looks clear, straight when I'm actually, recording in the background. But when I go to look on YouTube, it looks grainy and things. So I got to experiment to see if it is, the either something in the settings or is it the camera itself. So I need to find another camera on this that I can utilize on this computer to test it out. And so, but yeah, that's it. Want to cast into the future of streaming. Yep. Damn, hotel brother. What is your position on Masonic lodges? Someone asked the question, what is my position on Masonic lodges? I really don't have an issue with Masonic lodges. You're supposed to, if we're talking about nation building, you're supposed to have an organization that is not necessarily secret, but that weeds out certain individuals, that you have a concentrated group of individuals who are about higher ideals and who are willing to put in the work to maintain and to help the society expand. And so that's what Europeans have done for themselves when they created these lodges. Every society has an equivalent to that. What African Americans and what African people need is something along those lines for themselves. And given that, because of the transatlantic slave holocaust, we've lost, a lot of that due to we being forced to relinquish major aspects of our culture, because our sacred societies were transformed here in the United States to, self-help organizations and funeral rights organizations and insurance companies and things of that nature after slavery. But you need that type of institute to where you're able to communicate with each other in code, and that's what they have, for themselves. And I personally, I believe that all the men who are serious about the liberation of African people should join a lodge and get as high up as you can, so that when you create, or when we create our own along those lines, you can have some semblance of structure, in a modern time. And that's what we need. So, get the information in terms of its organization, create your own. Because you got to be able to create your own networks of individuals, and you have to have a filtering process so you can get rid of those people who are just a lot of talk, and so that the people who are serious about the work, and then y'all can be about doing the work, and that y'all have an oath to each other and an oath to your people. And so that if you betray the people, that there are consequences, for your actions. And so so let me see, don't they have that in African secret societies? Yeah, they still exist, but African secret societies, in a traditional sense, they need to be updated for modern times, and then they're only localized in terms of their individual ethnic groups. The Masons have sought to have lodges all across the world, and that's uh that's what we need, like a something like that is just our own. Every culture has their own quote unquote secret societies, and they are charged with learning how to run the state apparatus and to maintain the integrity of the body of wisdom of that society. And so that's what we need. So let me see. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, they're talking about something else over here. Yeah, y'all have your own conversation in there. Oop, nope, not add as a moderator. Sorry, I have like multiple devices on here, so I'm trying to navigate them all. And so boom. So anyway, yeah, that's a debate y'all can have at another time. So looking on Facebook, I don't see any questions. Don't see any questions here. And so what I'm going to do about creating an African American spiritual system, that's actually, let me step back for those who aren't reading. Someone asks, can I talk more about creating an African American spiritual system? That will actually be an online lecture in a couple of weeks. But also, I want to do a series of physical lectures, like in the cities, on that subject. And because YouTube is one thing, it's good for to have this kind of archival thing for the internet, and to kind of counterbalance a lot of the craziness that we see on the internet. But this is something that you have to kind of really engage the people with, because the creating our own spiritual tradition, or our own wisdom tradition, as I prefer to say, requires that one-on-one contact with the people. But it's part of the African American Cultural Development Project. So that is just one room in that house, or of that larger discussion that we're going to be talking about in there. So just kind of be a little patient with me as I get the data together for the online presentations. So yeah, I mentioned it a while ago in the video. So yeah, it's going to be you'll see in a future video is going to be detailed and what that would consist of. And so we want to create something that doesn't have the baggages of the traditional spiritual systems, but at the same time has those major pillars and foundations for which we can build on. And so we'll get into that more, in the future. So let me see. I don't see anything else. And so again, I didn't plan to make this long. So I'll put it again in the chat. Here is the link to the text if you want to purchase it today. This is, I'm getting a glare, Towards a Comparative Dictionary of Cikam in Modern African Languages. If you haven't gotten this text here, Aluja Volume 2, then I encourage you to also get this. And today, probably right after I finish this program, I'm going on my website and I'm going to reduce the price, for sale, given that we're in quarantine, to the pre-order price, which is 30. So right now it's 45 for this text, but for like the next 2 weeks or so, I'm gonna make it 30. So and if you haven't gotten our text already, a contribution to the debate on the meaning of the place name Kemet. This is Brother Wujawu, Brother Sanjeti, and I. We are the Shimsu Heru research team. And we're also the African Scholastic Homeland Security Agency that we created, to counterbalance all the craziness that we see, on the internet. Anyway, so that's all I have. No, there are no ebook versions of the text. When does your next class start? It will start soon. I'm taking this quarantine time to really kind of organize and put all of this together. So, for those 2 questions y'all had asked, that will be coming soon. And then I'm also working on a 3rd class, actually a workshop. It'll just be a one time. You don't have to take a class on it. Just a 1-day workshop. But I appreciate you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your day. I don't know if anybody else is going to have any shows or something tonight, so I will kind of scour the net for that. But yeah, everything seems to be working. So good on YouTube, good on the Facebook platform, and it's hot in here. I'm sweating. I didn't want to turn the fan on, so I had it. That sound in the background. So y'all be easy. Thank you all. I will see you later. Peace and blessings.